This is K-12 Tech Talk. K-12 Tech Talk. The podcast by K-12 Techs for K-12 Techs. Real conversations, real arguments, and real banter on trending K-12 technology topics and issues.
Live from the somethingcool.com studios, this is the K-12 Tech Talk podcast. My name is Josh. I am your host with the most tonight. With me, as always, are my lovely co-host, Chris.
Hello.
And Mark.
Hello.
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. We took last week off for Thanksgiving. Did you guys do any traveling?
I did. I came out your direction.
Yeah, where'd you come to? Not Missouri, but where?
Indiana. We're on the border of Indiana and Ohio, so we're bouncing between both states.
Did you pick up any new words?
No.
Did you eat any barbecue?
No.
What'd you even come for?
I can't say that Ohio and Indiana would be really where I would go to for barbecue. Not to upset any of our listeners there.
What does Indiana even have? Not to upset any of our
Hoosiers.
listeners.
Hoosiers.
Well, we would bounce between cornfields and soy fields, and then cornfield and then a soy field.
Nice.
Yeah. Lots of fun.
See, it's interesting. Indiana uses the term Hoosier in an endearing way. They're proud to be Hoosiers in Indiana. In Missouri, it is not a good thing to be a Hoosier. And I think I figured out the correlation with that. There was a Chrysler plant in St. Louis, and at one time they brought in a lot of Indiana residents to work there, like transfers, and they were seen as a negative.
A bunch of Hoosiers.
A bunch of Hoosiers came in, so then it was kind of a negative connotation. Yeah, interesting. Chris, did you travel anywhere?
No, we stayed home. We hosted. I mostly sat on the couch and I just had this like
cook.
Well, no, I just sat there and I was just thankful for our listeners. Like, that's mostly what I did. I just thought about them.
Oh, that's interesting.
We hosted. I smoked 4 racks of ribs. We did a ham. We did a turkey. Actually, my dad did the ham. We did a turkey.
We drove to Kansas City and hung out downtown at the Plaza.
Nice.
And Crown Center. And so we got there, and we went to a couple different bars in the Power and Light District. And everybody we talked to, waitresses, bartenders, I said, okay, where's the best barbecue? Because I've heard of Arthur Bryant's, Q39, or Q37, bunch of places. You know, Kansas City is known for barbecue, right? As much, or I won't say more than St. Louis, but as much as St. Louis. And
healthy competition.
Everybody we talked to said Slaps Barbecue in Kansas, like literally right across the state line. So we went to Slaps, and I'm telling you what, that barbecue slaps. Like that's a term the kids use. It was good. If you're in the Kansas City area, Chris, I know you end up in Kansas City several times a year, it seems like. It's literally, if you're downtown, right across the state line on, what is it, 639 or 635 right there, Slaps Barbecue, outstanding barbecue. So they are not a sponsor, though. Somethingcool.com is a sponsor. We mentioned them at the beginning. My son just came through as I was mentioning something cool about being a sponsor tonight. And he says, hey, I found a somethingcool.com pin in our student help desk room the other day. So I'm not sure how Jeremy got it there, but Jeremy sent my high school some pins, apparently.
They do ink pens, they do Nutanix, they do VMware, they do cybersecurity, they do it all.
Yeah. So email Jeremy at somethingcool.com. That's literally his email address. If you want some pins or if you need some Nutanix or VMware help.
Mark, when we talk about barbecue, like, are you into that? Like, do you guys have barbecue at Boston Way? Is it as big of a deal as it is in Missouri?
They only cook witches at the stake.
I don't like it when you guys talk about barbecue because I'm very jealous. We love barbecue, but we don't have the barbecue that you guys have out there. It's really.
I was just talking for some reason about barbecue yesterday. And Mark, you were my example. Like, I feel like Josh and I, like, we know barbecue as an experience. Like, we taste it, we cook it, we talk about it. Like, we do barbecue.
Yep.
To you, it's more like something that you hear about. Like, you know what barbecue is, but you haven't experienced it. Now, you did come to Midwest Tech Talk and you had the hog roast.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of like talk, and you hear about a hog roast, like, yeah, whatever, what is that? Oh, they put a hog in a hole and then you eat it together, whatever. But when you experience it, like we do in the Midwest, it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, we have barbecue restaurants out here, but it's not like a cultural thing, right? You know, where it's like, let's go do barbecue or let's go do something else. It's like there's a restaurant that does really good barbecue, and that's your like once a year occasion, you know.
I will take issue a little bit with what Chris has said. Chris, this is not a disparaging comment to you, but barbecue, when you cook barbecue, it is meant to be done in a manner that allows you to enjoy adult beverages in the process. Because a rack of ribs,
it's an experience.
You judge if the rack of ribs is done by the number of beers you have consumed.
I gotcha.
Like a pork butt, I'll put that baby on at 4 a.m. There's you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. So there's a certain component of barbecue that you're missing. Nothing against
right.
you, not disparaging you, but
because I do it by the hours. I do 3-2-1, 3 hours.
Yes,
without foil, 2 hours with, and then
yeah.
You're right. I'm with you.
And our buddy Pate, he guides us to this day. I would text Pate. I'm like, hey, I'm doing pork steaks. Remind me again what to do.
Yep.
And it's funny. We talk about him almost every week. Yeah, we're totally off the rails. So, Mark, you have news, right?
Step on up here, news boy.
Chris really wants to make certain catchphrases a thing.
Josh went right into the
that's the breaking news. You know,
that's the bit.
What they do on the Chiron. Breaking
news. Yeah.
Step on up here, newsboy Mark.
He's in the news center. You can hear all those reporters behind him.
Okay, so the first one was an article that somebody sent it to me, and I had not heard this one. This is actually out my way in Massachusetts. And then it was a flood of everybody sending me this article. Like, have you heard this? So this week, the news broke of a...
Mark, you're muted.
Sorry. How long was I muted there?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Good.
Awkward enough.
And we're not cutting any of this. You know,
No.
that's what other polished, overproduced, it takes 6 months to get a podcast out. We aren't those people. What you hear is how this gets like, this is what happens, people.
We're not polished.
Well,
I think we plan it.
I'm kind of
like Mark muted himself on purpose. That's in our script.
I need powder. I'm a little shiny.
According to the Department of Justice in my hometown of Boston, 30-year-old Connor Lahiff was charged Wednesday and agreed to plead guilty for a June 2023 cyber attack targeting the school network of his former employer, the Essex County Public High School. So this is a former IT director that apparently lost his job and in revenge decided to deactivate and delete thousands of Apple IDs from the school's account using his admin privileges. So he deleted and deactivated more than 1,400 accounts of IT admin accounts and Apple accounts. So
and disabled the school's private branch phone system.
Yes, he also disabled the phones. So if convicted, he does face a pretty hefty penalty of possible time in jail as well as a fine. So I think it is a lesson for all of us that these folks that we work very closely with, when it is their time to depart, no matter what the circumstances, you do need to have protocols and processes in place to make sure that you safeguard yourself from an insider attack. So very, very unfortunate story, but hopefully we can all learn a lesson from this one.
I hesitate to say this, but I don't know if that's a lesson that everyone has to learn. Like, that should be something, like, don't do that, because
Yeah.
you're gonna get in trouble. Like, they have logs, they're going to know whose account did that. It's going to be very difficult for you to say, oh, someone hacked my account right after they fired me, I wasn't mad, like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I don't know. I think there are certain things that you should just make as part of a routine.
Sure.
When somebody leaves, whether or not they're in your department or not. But this is a
And
hard
whether or not they leave on great grounds or not, like
absolutely.
the process, like we
Yes.
turn off the accounts.
Yeah.
Well, and if it's going to be a contentious situation, if HR knows the outcome, this dude's getting fired.
Yeah.
When that guy goes behind the closed door meeting with the boss, someone from HR central office is calling and saying, hey, disable this account right now because things are it's about ready to get real.
Yeah.
So that scenario can't play out.
Yeah.
But to Chris's point too, even if I leave on a good terms, I was thinking about this today for some reason, that when I leave, because we know too many people that still have accounts with their old schools after they retire or after they leave and go on to another district. Why I want my account disabled the second my agreement is over and I'm out the door. I don't want to be able to say that I still have an account.
Yeah. Well, and how many times have you heard a ransomware story of threat actors who made their way through a former employee's account?
Sure.
So tough story.
Yeah, and not to defend the guy, but in the heat of the moment where maybe you're letting your feelings get the absolute best of you in a terrible way, had he not had the keys to the kingdom, he could have had this thought but not acted on it. I don't know. That's tough.
But you're going to have people in your environment that have the keys to the kingdom. Each one of us probably have the keys, have an account that has the keys to the kingdom, or know of the account. It's nature of the beast. When a superintendent's let go, or when an IT director, maintenance director, if it's an involuntary thing, when that person's pulled behind that closed door, there needs to be precautions taken immediately. Like, other people need to know when that's going down.
This reminds me of, for some reason, there was a school district close to me that the rumor on the street was tech guy left, retired. And it was discovered later that all of the domain registrations for the school, he actually had put under his personal GoDaddy.
Oh my goodness.
And and you think about that, talking about checks and balances of who does those purchases. It had never been checked out on how that was registered. So he didn't leave on great terms, but he had the domains. So there had to be some negotiations, whatever that word would be, for him to give that up and to transfer that over.
Wasn't there a website in Missouri, like moteachingjobs.com, this year that was down like the first 3 months of school because they fired their IT guy and he wouldn't give over the credentials to GoDaddy to renew their SSL certificate, or whoever had the SSL cert. And he told him, pay me 20 grand. There was some crazy story behind it. That happens, I think, way more often than what we think, which is unfortunate.
Right.
That's amazing.
All right. What's the other story in the newsroom?
The other one, a little more of a conversation, not necessarily news, but if you ever read EdTech Magazine, it's a news publication. They have both a written and or an online and a print one. Well, they had an article very timely for Thanksgiving around what are you IT influencers? And that's that they didn't interview us, but we are an IT influencer, a K-12 IT influencer. What are you thankful for this time of year? So they had a few examples of some IT directors and teachers and ed tech folks talking about the hardware that they're thankful for, either a wearable or a cell phone. And they talked about some software solutions that they're thankful for in terms of AI or Minecraft. One of them I didn't realize until just now. A teacher from Texas named Stormy Daniels is very thankful for
OnlyFans.
For different things, and then they do link to her video, which I'm really afraid to click on that video.
What website are you on?
Not the right one.
Not the right one. But anyways, I want to turn over you because we just went through Thanksgiving. What are you two thankful for from your IT lens?
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, this is going to sound like a plug, but this is an in general technology thing. But over fall break, we moved all of our remaining MDFs and IDFs over to Extreme. Extreme, who is a proud sponsor of the K-12 Tech Talk podcast. You can email dmayer at extremenetworks.com for that kind of stuff. But anyways, what I'm thankful for is that loop protection is a thing now. I can remember back in the day when someone would do the bad thing with a cable and it was a big old pain in the butt and it would bring down the network. Well, we had a funny thing this week. Again, I got new switches and I'm going through stuff and messing with configs and I see a port that's disabled. And without any investigation of anything, I'm like, that's stupid. That's disabled. So I click enable and I refresh it and it's disabled again. So then I check the logs and it's loop protection kicking in. So I drive over to that building and yeah, sure enough, I don't know if it was during the swap out or if it had been that way for years and years because loop protection has been a thing for a while. It's very likely that even our HP switches had this random cable plugged in. It was a cable like tucked into the rack, like literally the UPS is sitting on top of it. So it was like snug. And it was just going to itself. So I'm thankful for loop protection.
ELRP is what that's called with Extreme.
Yep.
I would say I'm thankful for self-harm monitoring, number one, and it for no particular reason, but I think that's a tool that doesn't get talked about enough. And the product we currently have does a fantastic job at it. I'm thankful for since Chris is plugging sponsors, socks. Not the ones on my feet, but security operations centers, like NTP, and I guess my cell phone.
I thought you were going to say myself.
Well,
I am the best tech director I know.
Mark, I'm thankful for Mark. Mark, what are you thankful for?
Well, you just kind of made this sound a little cheesy here. I am thankful for the network of people that I'm able to connect with.
Yeah,
including the two of you guys, the folks on even the Reddit K-12 sysadmin group, the K-12 Tech Pro, and my kind of casual text groups of partners. I think that's been the thing that's gotten me through the good days and the bad days the most, is knowing that there's other people out there to help me through problems and to commiserate when we need to. So that's what I'm thankful for this year.
Chris,
loop protection kind of sucks now.
Lame idea, Chris. Chris, I think what Mark's saying is that we've expanded his circle. He has more friends now because of the podcast and K-12 Tech Pro, and he has more friends now. Yeah. Oh, thanks. Well, Mark, come on up from the newsroom. Come on upstairs and back to the studio, and we'll talk about our next couple topics. Okay.
All right. I'll be right up.
Did you guys? I know we talked about it in text the other day. Do you guys use Spotify to listen to music and podcasts?
Yep, I'm a Spotifyer.
Okay, Chris, Mark. Okay, I am not. I don't really use Spotify. I'm cheap. I'm super cheap, super tight. So I'm not going to pay for that. This whole year-end thing with Spotify, we got our stats, our numbers jumped, followers jumped like 167%. We are top 10 for over 300 followers or something crazy. So it's cool to see those statistics. I am curious though, Chris, what was your top music genre or your artist?
Genre was rock, and then it was hip hop.
Really?
My top band is Switchfoot. That's been my favorite band since like middle school, high school. So I guess I still listen to them a lot.
Mark, what was your any interesting statistics from your Spotify wrap up year end? Now that you made it back from the newsroom.
Yeah, I gotta. I'm just opening up Spotify right now. Where do I find that? I need to. I haven't looked at it yet.
I don't know where it is.
It usually hits you in the face. Like
All
it
right,
says,
well,
like this new thing's available.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Year 2023 wrapped up. Okay, this is gonna be painful to watch.
You got to do it.
This
go
is like
through
a
together.
live. This is a live reading here. We're gonna
Yes, it's going to be great.
Real data.
Well, while I'm doing this, Chris, your wife had also posted hers on Facebook, and I didn't recognize a single thing that she listens to. So
Her top podcast was K12 Tech Talk.
You don't recognize that, Mark?
It's her only podcast that she listens to.
Oh, that I did recognize that one. Okay, so I'm watching it live. 2023 was a feast for your ears. You listened to 57 genres.
I couldn't name 57 genres of music.
Mark's gonna get weird.
Yep.
It's gonna get weird. Come on, get through here. We're gonna cut that. I'm gonna trim this down in the thing. There's an animation.
Yeah, their animations are slow. Well, while that's happening, Mark, you get your data. Chris, why don't you tell us about Fortinet real quick and who they can contact if they want more information about Fortinet and their many Forti products.
There are many Forti products, and you can email fortinetpodcast@fortinet.com. If you're just getting started, of course, Firewall. That's their bread and butter. That's what they're mostly known for. They're FortiGate. So reach out to them if you're looking at Firewall. They're going to compete with your Palo. They're going to compete with all the big boys, and they're going to say they're better, and they're going to win. Spec to spec, they can probably pull it off for you, right? So email fortinetpodcast@fortinet.com. But they do everything else. They can do your switching. They can do your VPN stuff, your remote connection stuff. They can do it all. So again, email fortinetpodcast@fortinet.com. You're going to talk to a guy named Chris, and he can hook you up. And mention us, and you'll get aggressive special pricing.
Ooh.
Supposedly.
I'm sure Chris will be aggressive. So our main topic this evening was we've got a couple listener emails. Sorry about that. Reddit, there was a Reddit thread on non-subscription wireless. How do you handle changes to subscription-based pricing, manage wireless freemium, etc.? Everything's moving to an annual subscription. So what are some ways that you've managed the transition? This is a very timely topic for me. Chris, Mark, what are you guys doing about not managed wireless, but subscription-based wireless like that? Are you guys taking the jump into that almost wireless as a service fee structure, or are you still able to leverage an old school wireless infrastructure where it's, buy it once, you got a controller on site, you've got your licenses for the controller, and you're good. You don't have to buy those year over year. What are you guys up to?
Yeah, we are fully over onto a managed or cloud-based wireless. So yes, it is a higher operating cost or annual cost for us. We made the transition over a period of 5 or 6 years, and it's different, right? Because you're moving funding sources, and we're constantly balancing capital versus operating. Or if you're a school district that depends on bond dollars, this is really difficult to do. But we did make the transition over time. And there was a post on Reddit. The one that we're referring to was where the person's saying, are there still wireless out there that you don't need to do this. And I think there may be some today, but that it's a dying thing. So
Yeah.
you
Yep.
do need to start to plan your transition to a cloud-based wireless system. And to be honest with you, it provides you so much more capabilities and functionalities than some of the on-prem stuff. So, it's not an easy transition, but I think once you get that ball rolling, it does make it a lot easier, and it starts to make the conversations with your finance office a little bit more predictable when they know what your costs are going to be. So, Chris?
I know my current superintendent, has encouraged me, and he likes being able to see year to year, this is the cost, as opposed to the old school way of, in 5 years, there's going to be this huge purchase, and it's going to be chill for a while. And then in 3 years, you're going to ask me for a bunch of money. He has liked that I can structure this thing out. This is pretty much what it's going to be every year. I have a budget line. It's been established for a while, but it's for tech fees. It's for stuff like this. My strategy has been, I look at everything over the course, usually of 3 years. And I've tried to get that budget line that I know basically I'm going to cover what's going to hit with some extra. I've looked at what is the total amount if everything would hit at the same year. And then I've figured out some pacing that's going to make sense. And I try to buy in 3-year increments. That's kind of been my jam for quite some time. I'm not really a yearly guy. Usually it's going to take you a year to figure out the product that you're getting into. It's going to take you the second year to realize that you hate it. So third year, you're going to be looking at what you're going to move to. So 3 years makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I think, speaking to the question about, are there any wireless providers left that don't require wireless as a service subscription? The one that comes to the top of my head is Aruba for now, Aruba Instant. You don't need to run Aruba Central. You can still run instant clusters and be completely local. You don't have to be cloud-based. And it, you don't have to, there's no subscription that goes along with running an instant cluster. But like Mark said, all of that, if you're going to want the newest version of software or the newest revisions of firmware, you're going to have to go to the cloud-based stuff. So I think he's right. That is a dying breed or a dying option. I was very hesitant to go cloud-based or that subscription-based. And my first question was, what happens if 5 years from now, because we bought a 5-year license, what happens 5 years from now if we decide that we don't want to continue with this wireless as a service, that we want to go back to a local cluster? That's something I had to feel decent about. And the answer from Aruba was, yeah, that's fine. If you don't pay, you can go back to using a local cluster and not have a problem. I will say it is nice to be able to get to your wireless setup from anywhere, because I can, I've been at home and gotten a phone call where, hey, there's an event going on in the gym and we need so-and-so to be able to get on. Can you turn public on, or can you turn it back on? That kind of thing. It's nice to be able to do that from anywhere. And I know you could do it if it was local, if you had a jump box, yada, yada, but I don't.
It's easier.
Yeah.
Much easier. Yeah.
And safer, and much, much safer.
Oh, absolutely. You're not poking holes in firewalls to your, VMware instance and all that fun stuff.
Well, I think that there's an argument that I commonly hear from folks when they're looking at a cloud service like security cameras and wireless, to say, I can't afford, and I don't mean like financially, but I can't afford to have these things go away if the money starts to dry up. And that's 100% correct. But the difference is that if there is a budget cut and you need to cut into wireless, you need to cut into security cameras, that's a different conversation with your finance officer, your budget director, to say, I understand that you want to cut budget, and this line, if we cut it, that means these classrooms are going dark. These areas of the hallway are not going to have the security camera footage. As opposed to you kind of almost hedging and saying, all right, it'll stay up. We're just not going to get the new version. We're not going to get software updates. The liability goes back on your shoulders if you're running unsupported, unmanaged stuff in your system because you don't have the funding to do it. I would much rather, and I know that this is a really, really painful thing to say, I would much rather have the conversation with the CFO to say, this school is going to drop X number of access points if you cut this budget line. And you're going to make that conversation a lot harder to have in a good way than if you're saying, okay, I guess we're not going to do the refresh. We're going to run an outdated OS. We're going to run old systems. We're going to hobble along on this hard drive that's 8 years old.
Yeah.
So I think it's better for us to get ourselves onto cloud-based systems where they are managed each year, and the decision is a yes or a no. We're going to refresh this one or not, as opposed to let's hobble along and see if we can get it to work for another few years.
Great example. And I'll be fully transparent here. We at one of our buildings, we had a camera system that was older. I bought it one of my first years here, and we needed to add a camera because the principal decided this was a blind spot. There was things going on here he wanted to see in this space. So I got a quote for a camera, $1,000 or whatever it was, and we get ready to pull the trigger on the PO, and the salesperson says, "Oh, wait a minute. What version of NVR do you have? Because this camera requires, version, let's say 6. And if you don't have version 6, you need to upgrade your NVR." So I went and looked, and we had version 5 or 4, several revisions behind. The NVR we had was an appliance. It could not take the update. So we were in a situation of, guess what? That one camera that should have really only cost us about $1,000 is now costing us $60,000 because we have to buy a new NVR, new licensing, yada yada yada. So I took that opportunity to get bids for an entire new system as a service, and it was cheaper over a 5-year period. So that can definitely go both ways and bite you in the butt in different manners. I don't know.
Yeah. I just think that we have to stop saying, all right, I'll make it, I'll get it to work, or I'll make it keep working with the limited resources that we have, and moving towards cloud services that's an on or off changes that conversation quite a lot. And it sounds painful and scary from us, but I would rather be in a place where I'm telling a school, hey, I can't put another camera there, or this is going to have to go down because the budget guys cut us, as opposed to, in a few years you get a breach and they're saying, well, you were running all this outdated software and all these old systems, and your camera system died because you hadn't replaced it. People are looking at you in that circumstance as opposed to the budget.
Yeah. No, it makes sense.
I like it, Mark.
Chris, why don't you tell us about K-12 Tech Pro and the new cybersecurity initiative that's coming up?
Yeah, so I guess last week on our weekly Vitals call, those are always on Fridays around noon Central. If you're not on K-12 Tech Pro, I just encourage you to get on there. We have a ton of sponsorships available. So there is a cost, but just click sponsorship when you get to the end, and you're paid for. And that's always going to be part of our focus, is to get everybody on there that's in K-12 in the tech department to be on there. So on Fridays, we have these quick 15-minute phone calls. And I guess it was last Friday, there was a longer conversation taking place about, cybersecurity is a focus, of course, in K-12. It's been the hot topic on this podcast for quite some time. But the community is kind of, making some statements that we want to focus more on helping each other with those initiatives. So it was Adam on K-12 Tech Pro that brought up this idea, use the word coalition. I don't know what exactly it's going to pan out to be, but there's a post on there now that we've been discussing. Basically, there are schools that have a lot of time or resources or employees in their tech department that they can focus on cybersecurity well. We have a ton of schools where it's a one-person show, or maybe it's just a small tech department where cybersecurity is a focus, but it's a resource need. It's a lack of time kind of thing. So we're going to try to come together, and we're spitballing a bunch of ideas, and I love for, if you're not on Pro, to come on over. But If we come up with like, here's the top 10 things to make sure that you implement, and yeah, there's a lot of resources that have controls listed in the whole thing. We're going to come up with pointing each other to those and then typing out the guides on how to do that. So not just say the sentence of like, make your email secure, but we're going to show you the guide. Here's how you do DMARC and SPF and DKIM, and really get into it and talk about the differences between CIS and NIST, and maybe pick at some in particular for K-12. There's even some folks on there talking about maybe helping each other. So maybe you're in a school district again by yourself, and you hear us talk about doing a tabletop exercise, but you've not really experienced one. Well, we'll put you into a group and you can do a tabletop with some peers on K-12 Tech Pro. So I'm excited about the talks that we're having, and it's going to be one of our focal points for 2024, as it needs to be anyways. This is already what we're talking about. So jump on there, look at that post. I think it's going to be good stuff.
Before we get into one of our last topics for the night, I'm going to bring up NTP. And we've talked about them several times. They're getting ready to have their Christmas party next week. And I think Chris said he and I are telling jokes to start the night off on stage. I don't know about this. But, you know, we've mentioned it before. If you are a SentinelOne customer or you are a client of one of the other big EDR solutions, give David an email or a call or Zach and just see what they can do for you pricing wise. I'm willing to bet, and if I'm wrong, I will admit it on a show. If you contact David and he cannot give you a better price on SentinelOne, on a SOC managed SentinelOne top tier version of SentinelOne, I will email us at k12techtalk@gmail.com. Email us, and I will admit my wrong statement on a podcast episode. But
that's a big deal.
The first step in that, yeah, because I hate admitting I'm wrong.
But you're
really,
never wrong.
The first step in that is emailing David and getting some information from David about SentinelOne and what their SOC can do for you. DREN, WREN, at ntp-inc.com. I'm willing to bet that he can save you some money and you'll get a SOC managed solution out of it.
Josh, have you been to the SOC?
I have not.
I have.
Have you really?
I went over fall break.
Is it as impressive as I've built it in my mind? Like,
I will tell you this. There's a room that's like all glass walls, or 3 of the 4 walls were glass.
Yeah.
And David's given the tour, and you can look into the room, and that's
sure
where the real action of the SOC is happening. And you see all kinds of people, and they're at their screens, but the screens are black. And it doesn't make any sense. Well, David lets me know that, like, and he like barely, like, I kind of got to see it. They have that stuff on the glass that makes the screens like turn black, so you can't see what's on the screens.
No, yeah, privacy screens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very impressive, very high tech. I mean, I had to get like buzzed in. I had to prove who I was. It was a real deal.
Yeah, to go through SOC certifications, like they have to meet some pretty heavy standards.
I was treated as a guest, like in a great way, but it was secure. It was a real deal.
They wouldn't let you touch anything.
I got to touch nothing. Like
I got my Spotify.
Oh yeah.
I'm ready.
Back to Mark's Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah. So they tell you where you're most likely to be listened to, or where your listening styles are most similar.
Yeah.
Bozeman, Montana is where most people.
Well, you spent some time in Bozeman, Montana.
I went to Bozeman about a year ago, so those are my people. I need to go back. My top artists are Fish.
Oh yeah.
Grateful Dead.
Old school Fish.
Old school. They're still touring.
They're not old school. Whippersnapper.
Old school. Fish, Grateful Dead, Fleetwood Mac, and then Greta Van Fleet.
Ooh, yeah.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
what I'm getting out of Mark's Fish, Grateful Dead, and a little bit of Fleetwood is he might like some herbal remedies. Mark, do you like herbal tea?
Yeah. I
Herbal
like
tea.
the
Earl
occasional
Grey.
herbal. I like the occasional herbal tea.
A nice Earl Grey. So
Did you have hip hop come up?
No, I did not have hip hop.
I'm
And then
still,
the fifth one was Crooked Still. You know them?
no, I do not.
Oh, it's a good bluegrass.
So
Oh.
I had, this is funny too. So I had NF, that's the hip hop, Switchfoot. Do you know Judah, like Judah and the Lion?
Yeah.
But then this is funny. So Eric and I went to
Yes.
Coasting Conference together.
Yes.
And there was that whole deal where
Yes.
I gave Eric the podcast credit card and that I used my points on.
Mark.
No tax evasion going on here. To buy tickets to Vance Joy. And Vance Joy is kind of, he sings songs about women. So it was kind in like relationships.
Okay.
So it was a little different that Eric and I, who are both happily married to wives separately, that were chilling at the front of this Vance Joy concert. But on my Spotify, Vance Joy, like that month, it was June, that was like the month of Vance Joy. And it was actually like the thing on the Spotify Wrapped, like it's like someone has a message for you. And Vance Joy come on, like I was like one of his top fans for the month of June. And every time this is true, every time I hear Vance Joy, I think of Eric the intern.
Oh. I'm in the top 2% of Fish listeners, and I didn't get a video message.
Did you
from
see the
Fish.
news today?
Because there's two of them.
Did you see the news about Fish today?
No, what?
They are going to have a Vegas residency, and every show they do is a unique list, a unique playlist or set.
What do they sing?
They're like they're stoner music.
Herbal tea, Josh.
Herbal tea. They
Okay.
Yes, their listeners enjoy herbal tea. Yes.
A song I heard the ocean sing.
Yeah, you just don't. You're not going to know any of the songs. Not
They're
going
very
mainstream.
like jam sets.
bands.
Yeah,
Yeah.
jam band, jam set. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll play a song for like 20-30 minutes.
Yeah,
and
Dave
that's it.
I
Matthews-ish.
understand.
Dave Matthews-ish kind of.
I have to listen on headphones. My wife cannot stand it.
So she's not going to Vegas with you to see Fish?
No. Now, if Fish plays at the Sphere,
I don't know where they're playing. I saw an
Oh,
article
I
that
think
said
I
they're
just
having a
saw.
residency.
Yeah, it's the Sphere.
No.
Yep. Unique shows at the Sphere in Las Vegas in April.
There you go. We know where Mark's going in April. Hey,
I'm buying
isn't
tickets
K12
right
Tech
now.
Pro or Midwest Tech Talk having a West meeting? Maybe the West.
Yeah,
meeting
we
needs-
it's actually in April. No, I'm not kidding. It's actually the weekend I'm looking at is this weekend. Should we pick this?
Vegas.
I'm buying tickets right now. Is it seriously this? It's the Sphere.
Okay,
It's the
we need to
Sphere.
talk about our main topic, guys. Mark, let's focus for just 10 more minutes, okay?
I think this is a sign.
So, Eric the intern brought up an interesting topic, and I think he's working on an article for K12 Tech Pro about this. Things you would tell your younger IT self or K12 IT self, K12 director self. From a note from now to your younger self when you were getting started in the business. I sent Eric several, and I might have been cranky when I sent them, so they might have been a little sarcastic. But I think two of the big ones were, you are not an instructional person, so it is not your job to make instructional decisions about what websites are blocked or allowed, that kind of thing. If they're, as long as they're not porn or anything illegal. Your job is to take action when asked. The other was you might be seen as a bad guy, even though you're not a bad guy, just because of the nature of the position, the things you have to do. Unfortunately, in our roles, we have to tell people no. and people don't like being told no. Those were the two. I'm gonna have to pull up the text again and look and see if I can find them. Chris, what kind of notes would you send your younger self?
We talked about getting things in writing.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
If you're asked to do something that's unethical, against policy,
Yep.
or something that you disagree with, like you gave a recommendation and it's not being accepted, don't just do that as a conversation, but do the hard thing and be very straightforward with the sentences, very to the point, to just get that approved in email. If you are, now we can unpack the whole, if it's unethical, maybe you don't do it. You know, that's the hill that you die on.
Yeah.
But against policy, even that one. But however you're navigating through your job, when those hard things are happening and there's a disagreement there, there's a no there, there's some pushback there, to go ahead and get it in writing.
My first note was, don't take the hate personal. And I think that gets back to what I said about, you're not always going to be the most liked guy in the room. Pick your battles. Chris kind of already alluded to that. This is a very important one. Make friends with secretaries and food service workers. Your secretaries can be your best line of defense against salespeople that show up unannounced, mad parents, and food service workers. They might give you free food. Let's see what else.
I do good with one of that group and not the other.
Really?
Historically.
Yeah. This is kind of a guide to everyone, because I don't need this, but I said, if you're a person that needs constant praise, or you need people to like you, find another career. I promise people won't like you and only talk to you when they need something from you. They rarely will you hear, good job, we appreciate you, that type of situation.
I had a counselor call me this week. So my school's going, pretty big deal. We're going to state. Hopefully going to win a state football game. It's actually tomorrow. Long story short,
yeah.
Our state's athletics program, or whatever it is, has been sucking with the streaming.
Oh, really?
It's had some issues. And my counselor called me, and I thought, it took me a while to process it, because I'm not used to like someone saying something like nice, like what you just said. You're not used to the praise. But she was saying, we were talking about how we wish it was our tech department in charge of the streaming with the state streaming stuff, whatever. And like, I instantly was putting my defensive things up, like, oh, she's saying something to me about the Wi-Fi sucking or whatever. And then I had to like chill. I'm like, oh, she's just saying like, good job. And I was like, oh, that's great.
That's funny.
Thank you for the phone call. We never get phone calls like this.
One of the things that I think it takes new guys a little bit to understand in IT in general is kind of that idea that you're not going to get the entire story from a typical user. Like, a user is going to call and say something's not working. Oh, did you reboot? Yeah, I rebooted 3 weeks ago. Like, you're not always going to get 100% truth. That takes some newbies a little bit of time to understand.
One for me, I took a long time. I would tell people no without explaining the no.
Right.
And that's bad.
I'm really bad for that.
And real talk in that too is, usually whatever the request was, even if you're saying no, there's some kind of need, there's some kind of problem in there that they were trying to fix. So maybe they didn't ask the right question. But if you can do some follow-up, you might be able to give them a yes in a different kind of way, if you can get them to unpack the problem right. But yeah, I still don't do a great job, right? I like saying no, and it's easy to say no without explaining and trying to educate why this is happening.
My final thing was, if you're in IT, and this is not strictly K-12, this is just in IT in general. if you're in IT long enough, I've been in it 25 years practically. You're going to be put in a situation where you're going to find something out about a coworker or an employee of the place you work at that will shock you and disgust you. That's just the nature of how being in IT. At some point, you're going to be pulled into an investigation, and you're going to find out something that you're going to be shocked by. It's just the nature of the beast. Mark, now that your fish tickets are purchased, do you have any notes to your younger self that you would like to share?
Sorry, I was just reading the confirmation that I did just buy fish tickets. So
with the podcast credit card?
No. I was trying to get a hold of my brother. He's not answering.
Not again.
But I just need to let him know we're going to Vegas in April.
Oh, can we go and hang with your brother? I bet he throws good parties.
I'm going to buy some more tickets now. I totally agree. I mean, I think that last thing that you said is as frightening as it is. You are going to go through difficult investigations and issues in K-12, especially in IT. I think the thing, if I could tell my younger self something, it's that it's not about the technology, it's not about the hardware, the software, it's all about the people. Because your job in K-12 is to convince people of the values of the services that you're providing, as well as to communicate the challenges that you're having and the challenges that you need to go through. You when you think about where you've started and where you are right now, the shifts that you've had to make over the years requires a lot of change management, and that's just something they don't teach you that in school. They sure as hell don't teach you how to convince somebody that the upgrades that you're making or the downtime that you need to have is going to bring about better improvements. Or sometimes when it's just more of a security backend update, rolling out two-step verification, those kinds of things. That's the hardest part of the job, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing that I would love to have warned my younger self about, is that the technical part, as difficult and challenging as it is, will be the easy part in comparison to the change management.
I think you could take that conversation. There's a couple root issues there. And I'm going to say this about IT people, and I am an IT person. The typical IT person does not have good people skills. And they are not good salesmen. So Mark, to your point, when it comes time to have that convincing conversation or give that very convincing, powerful presentation, the majority of the people in our roles have extreme difficulty with that for a number of reasons. They might be nervous. There could be they're not neurodivergent. It could be a number of different things.
Yeah.
So that is a huge asset to have. If you're a good salesman, you'll go far in IT.
And IT is a logical industry. When there is a problem, there's a reason why that problem happened, and your investigation skills and your technical skills will help you to figure out why that problem happened and how to stop it from happening again. Those same skills don't transfer to people at all.
No.
People do not follow protocols and systems and structures. They don't follow routines like systems do. And I think that's the hardest part. Is it gets frustrating when you're in an environment that is so technical and routine, and then you mix that with the K-12 environment, which is anything but.
Yeah. All right. Any final notes to self?
I got one.
Uh-oh.
Oh, notes to self. No, I got to wrap up.
Okay. I have a question for Mark to wrap up. So Chris, you go.
I just wanted to make mention, mark your calendars for January 16th and 17th. We're back, boys. We're going to be presenting at the Learning Technology Center Secure Ed Schools virtual conference. That's January 16th and 17th. It's virtual. They have a Zoom-like platform. We did this last year. We had a great time presenting. And they gave us a discount code. So you do have to purchase tickets for this. But if you use code K12 Tech Talk Podcast, you get a decent knock off the price. I'll put that in the podcast description.
Awesome.
And we don't make a cut off of that. We're presenting for free. Just a little side note.
Yeah.
And also mark your calendars for April 20th, 2024, when 1/3 of the K12 Tech Talk podcast.
420. Get it?
I know.
Oh, geez.
Herbal tea.
1/3 of us will be at the Fish concert in Las Vegas at the Sphere.
Get out of here.
Mark, are you doing, has Fish asked you to do the intro? Like, are you introducing? We should contact them, Chris.
Yeah.
Mark, I do have a question about your Thanksgiving holiday.
Yep.
Did your family ask you about the tattoo?
So, yeah.
Oh,
yep. My mom and dad came in. They actually stayed here in Boston, and then I traveled to my in-laws in Indiana. But before I ran into my parents, they did ask about it, and I was able to show them, and they appreciated it. They liked the artwork. So
now your mom's going to listen to this, and she's now going to know that you enjoy herbal tea.
You guys are too much for me.
All right, we gotta wrap this up because Chris is going to state football championship tonight. Chris, tell the footballers good luck. I guess that's, find us on Twitter, shoot us an email, k12techtalk@gmail.com. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, all the places. We'll see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed on the K12 Tech Talk podcast are the personal opinions of Josh, Chris, and Mark, and do not represent the views or opinions of our sponsors or other organizations that we're affiliated with. The material and information presented here is for general information and entertainment purposes only. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.